Hey guys, welcome back. So having made a badly designed abilities part 4 a month or two ago, and after looking through the list of champions, I came to realize two things. The first being, holy crap, the player base hates like half of the roster. And the second being that I completely forgot to mention some very notorious picks, despite making 3 full videos on them over the past couple of years. That means it's time for a part 4. To my knowledge, it's been just over a year since the last episode, and if there's still more to complain about, then I guess I'll see you guys next year for part 5. But really quickly, I want to give a big shout out to this video's sponsor, Katarina. Katarina is a fast-paced third-person PvP mech shooter that focuses on short, high-intensity bursts of gaming, available on both desktop and mobile. You get to take control of a mech and fight against other players in a 5v5 match, just like in League, and you can choose from a plethora of weapons and mechs, each with their own special abilities, while upgrading them through resources you collect while playing. Once you build up an arsenal, you can take them through various game modes like 5v5 control point clashes, 5v5 or 2v2 death matches, and free-for-alls. There's over 20 different arena maps for you to play on, so you don't get bored looking at the same environment. The biggest feature of the game is their tournament system, a weekly high-score competition that lasts for 6 days and offers rewards each day. The more you participate in deathmatches or free-for-alls, the better score you receive. Best part is you can sink your teeth into them not too long after getting started. Just like in League, there's a ranking system that ensures you'll be pitted against other players of the same skill level for a fair fight. The game heavily rewards coordination and cooperation, especially in 5v5, but regardless of which mode you play, racking up kills is the name of the game, so if you're a fan of combat, you'll find yourself right at home here. In celebration of Pride Month, Katarina currently has Pride-themed skins you can get for free if you play this month, and later on there's a sci-fi themed event bringing new maps, the new chain gun weapon, the new Scorpius attacker mech, and a heavy-duty pilot along with it. It's completely free to play, so if you're interested in checking it out, be sure to use the QR code on screen or my link down below, and you'll get bonuses worth 30 bucks, 1 missile rack 6, 1 prodigy crate, and 1 skin when you kickstart your game. Feel free to add me in game as well if you want to. Thanks again to Katarina for sponsoring the video, but for now, let's talk about some hated champs. In accordance with the structure of the previous episodes, I won't be taking the current performance of the champions in question into consideration. While their performative history does have influence on their reputation, present win rates, pick and ban rates, what have you, are mostly circumstantial. So my assessment of them will be based on their empirical data and history. If they've had significant periods of time where they were a frequent target of controversy or vitriol, whether from high performance or not. It's not really based on a particular area or metric, more of a holistic approach to why they're not very well liked by the player base. I had initially 7 champions to start with, but only had time to go over 5 because I wanted to go more in detail on each of them this time, so let's get started right away. To begin, first on the list will be the 4th and final member of the 4 horsewomen of top lane, Camille. I already talked about Riven, Irelia, and Fiora, leaving Camille as the last box to check off. The 4 horsewomen of top lane are known for consistently being high priority picks and bans, more so the higher up you go, such as Master, Grandmaster, and Challenger. Characterized by their extremely high skill ceiling and carry potential in a role famous for its purported lack of personal agency, it's almost obligatory to be proficient with at least one of them if you have any aspirations of climbing past, I would say, D1. Camille's a bit different from the others though. While Fiora, Riven, and Irelia share the same blitz rush down 1v9 playstyle, Camille is more of a diver with an emphasis on burst rates or single target assassination in the late game. I would argue she has just as much carry potential as the others, but for different reasons, although the reasons why so many people hate her remain largely the same. Camille's introduction was the turning point of Riot's more ambitious champion design. Everyone called to attention how overloaded her kit was back in the day when her W used to heal, her E stun lasted I think like 1.25 seconds and all that. It was a novel sight for a diver to have such amazing long-range engage potential while still having the damage and late game scaling to complement. And even though she was ultimately kept in a stable condition throughout the start of her career, she was once again thrusted into public scrutiny following the mythic item system, due to her exceptional synergy with Divine Sunderer, an item with its own share of problems. While it's gone through a lot of nerfs and adjustments over the years, on release, the Spellblade did a whopping 10% max health bonus damage on Spellblade while healing 50% of it. How this worked with Camille is that Precision Protocol wasn't just an empowered auto attack, it was a damage converter, similarly to Victor's Q, where it transforms a portion of the damage dealt, in this case being true damage. This allowed Camille's Q to skyrocket in power with just a few items, as not only would it deal more damage from the bonus AD she got with every item, but any enhancements that came with it like Spellblade would do the same, effectively giving Camille % max out true damage. The main complaint everyone has with Camille is that all that pressure is tied to someone who can almost unconditionally engage on you from a full screen away and lock you down with their ultimate. Certain death if you're squishy, given she can build bruiser items like Death's Dance, Sterix, and GA on top of Sunderer and still deal a lot of damage while being tanky herself, not to mention the massive healing from Sunderer giving her sustain she wouldn't otherwise have. Fiora, Irelia, and Draven have better DPS potential, but Camille was more versatile and harder to shut down. She has the most balanced combination of damage, mobility, and defense, with her only real shortcoming being that she is exclusively single target. Then again, top lane is predicated on 1v1s. In essence, top laners hate her for being really hard to fight even if you play a duelist yourself, and everyone else hates her for being a diver with the burst capabilities of an assassin. I suppose while we're talking about divers who double as assassins, let's talk Rengar. Now Rengar's an interesting case, as half of the reason why people hate him is more for social aspects while the other half is for gameplay. Starting with the gameplay part, ever since the assassin rework in 2017, he was turned more into a fighter/bruiser than a full-on assassin. He still retains the assassin feel, but he's no longer a one-and-done attacker like he used to be, courtesy of the change they made to Battle Roar. When timed correctly, Rengar can instantly heal back a substantial portion of damage taken, 50% of it at that, giving him deceptively high burst resistance unless you can CC him during that time. And even if you pin him down, if his ferocity is capped, he can cleanse himself out of it, and by double casting Battle Roar, he can restore 50% of all the damage he took in the last second and a half twice, or in other words, fully recover all damage taken during that time. While it does come at the expense of far less damage output, for his opponents it can invoke a sense of what the f when you nuke him down with your full combo, only for him to go back to full HP. It's more egregious on Bruiser Rengar builds than full-on Assassin, but that's what I think bothers players a lot more nowadays instead of his actual damage. Of course, his insane one-shot potential is still target for backlash. Even though they made it so you have ample warning that Rengar's nearby, he can still 100 to 0 you in a fraction of a second, and in the hands of an experienced player, he can be one of the most difficult champions to catch when jumping everywhere from brush to brush. Just like Camille, Rengar can dive in, dispatch a priority target, then brawl his way back out thanks to the massive healing on his W. Unlike most assassins who have small periods of downtime between rotations, Rengar's DPS is very consistent and effective regardless of what he builds, be it full damage one-shot or tanky bruiser. High elo Rengar mains make that guy look almost unbeatable. Fittingly segueing into the social aspect, I think everyone has met that 170% win rate Rengar one-trick smurf before, or two, or doesn't. I don't know what it is, but in a similar fashion to Riven and Yasuo mains, something about the champion makes a lot of Rengar mains go full-on enemy main character syndrome where they either turbo snowball 1v9 20 kills by 20 minutes, or if they fall behind even a little bit, they just rage quit or intend feed the rest of the game. You know what I mean? Obviously not all Rengar mains are like that, but when you think of a stereotypical Rengar player, everyone usually thinks of like someone like maybe Scrub Noob. Kind of like how Twitch mains are always like L9 fanboys, or how Draven mains are the most obnoxious AD carries to support. Something about Rengar makes 80% of those who play him the most toxic one-tricks on the planet, and the other 20% elo boosters. At least back in the day, maybe not so much now. Although Rengar isn't as popular nowadays compared to back then anyway. Speaking of Draven, he'll be next on our list. Draven's an interesting fella. On one hand, I love his design, right down to his shit-eating grin and ostentatious sense of showmanship. Try saying that 3 times fast. But on a more serious note, Draven as a champion is one of the better designed ones out there in my opinion. Contrary to popular belief, there are a ton of interactions with him beneath the surface that add a surprising amount of depth when playing him, and overall I'd say he's a fairly designed champion. What makes people down in bot lane hate him so much is how go big or go home he is, to an even greater extent than Rengar. Ever since he got his gold generating passive, Draven can effectively get double the amount of gold on a single kill provided he accumulates adequate stacks beforehand, resulting in one kill being equal to a double kill, or a double kill being a triple kill, and so on. The reason that's so impactful is that Spinning Axe also serves as a multiplier to his power, at the time of writing this to the tune of 60 plus 115% bonus AD at rank 5, meaning every point of attack damage on Draven is more than doubled in terms of raw damage, not even accounting for crit damage on top of that, which is why Draven can start doing over 1,000 crit damage with only 2 items. His mid-game power spike far exceeds any other AD carry in the game by virtue of Spinning Axe behaving as guaranteed crits until Draven builds enough crit chance to do so naturally, and marksmen are known for having passable early games, very strong late games, but mediocre mid games, Draven, Ezreal, and maybe Samira being the exceptions. Which means, if Draven scores even a couple of early kills, you're up a creek for the next 15 to 20 minutes and will get bullied in lane even harder than you already are. The only bot lane duos that really counter Draven are double long range attackers or anyone who can interrupt or stop his axes. For example, Samira's W destroys projectiles, preventing Draven from picking up his axe, stuff like that. The inverse is also a problem. If Draven fails to garner a lead or worse, falls behind early game, he's one of the weaker late game AD carries. Draven mains also have a tendency to get tilted and exacerbate the situation by forcing fights or kills too hard. It's very rare to find a Draven main who's patient and calculated. Support players generally dislike playing with or against him due to how volatile the match can be in either favor, attributing to his consistently high ban rate at almost all times. They would rather just not deal with him in the first place. And like Rengar, Draven mains can be quite belligerent to say the least. I'm not trying to attack anyone, mind you, but stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. Might just be the Tyler 1 mentality from back in the day that stuck around even after he stopped one-tricking Draven. Personality aside though, hyper-snowball-y characters have a penchant for drawing more negative attention than positive. Moving on, let's talk about Akshan. He's very much like Draven, but also unlike him at the same time. Instead of being in bot lane, he makes a home for himself in top and mid lane. Top laners hate Akshan for the same reasons as any other ranged top laner. A lane bully who pokes you down 24/7 when you're just trying to farm, and if you ever engage on him, he just grappling hooks out. Mid laners hate Akshan because he abuses the early game strength of marksmen, since mages are extremely vulnerable until they get sufficient amounts of mana, cooldown reduction, and points on their abilities, forcing them to play hyper patient and deal with their team flaming them for not rotating when Akshan decides to roam. It's really the hookshot part that people dislike in the early game. Even though there's counterplay in that you can stop him by simply colliding into him, the hitbox detection can be fickle, and there's just so many ways he can nope himself out of a bad situation. When used offensively, the sheer number of bullets he can fire lets him get away with on-hit effects like Blade of the Ruined King, or the new items that just came from 13.10's mid-season patch. Were that alone, I think most people would be able to tolerate him, but towards the late game, he becomes quite possibly the most dangerous champion to ever exist. Period. Not because of his individual strength, though that's also a threat. It's the fact that if he scores a takedown on the champion who scored kills on the enemy team, he can revive his entire team, and that can have game-deciding consequences later on. Very often you have teamfights that end in 2-for-2s, 3-for-3s, 4-for-4s, but with Akshan in play, your team has to take him out first, or else you run the risk of him reviving his entire team and turning a 4-for-4 into a 4-for-0, giving them a free 40 to 60 seconds to do whatever the hell they want, whether it's take Baron, Dragon, Inhibitors, or flat out push for game. To this day, it's one of the most inappropriate abilities to give to a champion who specializes in stealth-based assassination. I'm aware there's a certain narrative purpose to his revive passive, but gameplay-wise, something like this should just not exist. Death should have consequences. Akshan bypasses them. I know what you're gonna say, it's almost impossible for Akshan to revive his entire team. Realistically, he might only bring back 1 or 2. But even one champion can make all the difference. Hypothetically, let's say the enemy team killed your jungler, but Akshan killed the enemy jungler who killed your jungler, reviving your jungler, and giving your team an overwhelming advantage for Baron or Dragon. A body is still a body. I've always been vocal about Akshan being the biggest piece of champion who isn't Yone, and I doubt I'm alone in this, but his revive passive is a literal war crime and blatantly disregards League's already fragile competitive integrity. We have room for one more. Like I said, I want to cover 7 champions, but the video is already past 10 minutes, so I'll save it for next time. Last champion for today will be Katarina. She's seen better days, definitely not as prevalent as she used to be, but I think it's cause her peers can do her job, but faster, or they don't have consistency issues as badly as her. Prior to her update, she was the textbook face roll champion. You can mash QWE and ultimate and score a pentakill. When they reworked her, she now requires a bit more nuance and planning to get going, but the gist is still the same. Take advantage of her passive to reset cooldowns and score kill after kill after kill. The novelty of her cooldown reset has practically vanished, while with every new champion having cooldown resets, but hers is still one of the best. The main thing with Katarina is how quickly she can just go from 0 to 100 at the drop of a hat. You hear this all the time. You spend the early game playing really well, building a CS lead, pressuring her in lane, avoiding ganks, and slowly but surely outlaning her. Then she roams bot and gets a triple kill and suddenly mid-gap. Katarina is just as vulnerable to being completely useless when behind as every other assassin, but the strength of her internal kit can artificially spike to astronomical levels if even for a short time, which might be just enough to get her back into the game and snowball even if you played perfectly in lane. Also, compared to other assassins who get nerfed if the enemy team groups up together, Katarina sometimes prefers it. She can output extreme damage with her ultimate and daggers that she thrives on the chaos of teamfights. Even if she fails to kill anyone, she likely gets people low enough to where someone else on her team can finish the job and proc her passive anyway. That's often what actually happens. She doesn't outright assassinate, she cripples the enemy team and or cleans up after everyone's injured. Because of this, I would regard her as more of a skirmisher than assassin. To sum it up, people hate Katarina for the sheer fact that she can go from a low priority target to public enemy number 1 just like that. And unlike other recent mechanics such as Viego, Samira, or Master Yi where there's a small delay before they can go Super Saiyan again, Katarina instantly resets, giving the enemy team virtually 0 time to react before getting annihilated. Of course, it depends on the enemy team's composition. If there's a bunch of hard CC or disruption, Cat won't be a problem even with the reset. But if it's a bunch of squishies or carries, pick a god and pray. Alrighty, so that's gonna be it for today. As mentioned, I still have more champs to go over, enough to make a part 5 because we still have Fizz, Bel'Veth, Sylas, Darius, Alawi, Senna, Kassadin. You know, at this point we can just assume every champion's hated for one reason or another, but you get what I mean. Anyways, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with my points. As always, if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you could leave a like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other hated champion videos if you haven't yet. But for now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next one. Take care.